Let's go, though, to the Wester Hotline as very excited to introduce here, believe first time on the station, Kevin Clark, formerly of The Ringer, now with ESPN. This is Football show over on ESPN2, courtesy of Omaha Productions. Kevin, man, how we doing?
I'm doing great. I was in St. John Fisher a couple weeks ago in beautiful upstate New York, and now I'm back. I did a little training camp tour. Now I'm back in around New York City and ready for football. I'm tired of talking football. I want to watch some football.
There we go. That's what I'm feeling. I think we were at the exact same Bills practice. I went to one this year. I had a Sunday show. It was the day James Cook, we all found out, was holding in. I think you were at the same one.
I was, yeah. That was a nice surprise. Just to see him wearing a sweatshirt and that. As I tell you what, there's not many camps where it's cool enough this time of year to wear a hoodie like he was wearing that day. But yeah, it was a surprise. I thought it would get done, and unless you're the Bengals, you basically, we saw with Terry McLaurin today. Mm-hmm. You handle your business, and so I thought that I was optimistic things would be fine by week one.
So, sticking on the Bills here, you were at camp, you were at practice, we've wrapped up the preseason. You know, what are your feelings with this team? I think for a lot of Bills fans as well, we can kind of get locked into, we're all Bills fans, we're looking at the Bills. Everything can kind of get to a certain point after months of talking about them, a very negative connotation around them. But from you, for a more national perspective, how do you feel they've kind of built this off season?
So I talked to Brandon Beane about this, and it's obvious, right? It's that the offense didn't let them down, and the defense, they felt like they could get more fourth-quarter stops against, whether it's Lamar Jackson, which you can always get more stops with how that game ended, or, of course, Patrick Mahomes. They want to be able to rush the passer in waves. And one of the things Beane had said to me was, watch the Super Bowl. And obviously what the Eagles were able to do, they were able to get an early lead and then pin their ears back and go after Patrick Mahomes, and the game was over by halftime, essentially, right? And so I think every team is trying to build that kind of platoon in the front seven, where it's just 8 or 9 guys who can legitimately rush the passer. But I think, with the Bills, that's the missing element of it. And so what was interesting to me was talking to those guys about the kind of Super Bowl or bust narrative, do or die narrative. I think they have the same attitude as the Ravens, which is, no, it's not Super Bowl or bust. They're not all in. They've got a window here. It's not like everybody's going to cancel their contract, as Deion Dawkins says, if we don't win it this year. So I think they're very honest about where they are in the evolution, and they know that there are 3 or 4 teams that are going to be in the mix to win this in late January, and then it might come down, nobody wants to hear it, to fumble luck or a kick or something like that, because it is such a strong conference on the AFC side.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about luck too. Me and Derek, we were just talking about that in the last segment. The injury luck that has kind of hit the Bills as well in the playoffs. When you have A.J. Klein coming off his couch, coming out of retirement to go cover Travis Kelce, it doesn't necessarily help you. It does not put you in a good spot. But they constantly keep making the dance, but it does get frustrating. I know there's the stat out there, Kevin, where McDermott and Allen, they've passed the threshold where a coach and a quarterback win their first Super Bowl, even make the first Super Bowl. But Harbaugh and Jackson, they've done that as well. They both just seem to have that problem. The Chiefs, the Ravens, though, are 0-2 against Allen in the playoffs, but it does just feel like the Chiefs have somewhat taken the oxygen out of the room for everybody in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens, and nobody wants to hear it, and I wouldn't want to hear it if I was a fan, but, the reason I compare Michael Jordan and Patrick Mahomes is because Michael Jordan left a lot of guys ringless, and there will be a group of quarterbacks who, and this is the nicest thing you can say to a competitor, who in 20 years when they're going into Canton are going to say they wish Patrick Mahomes was never born or chose baseball, right? And I think that's the coolest thing you can hear if you're a quarterback, and Mahomes is living it right now. And so, yeah, it's tough. And I don't really think any of those stats about, McDermott and Allen are past the threshold and they should have won one by now or whatever. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. Careers are longer now. We understand how to build rosters better. The salary cap is rising. I mean, I'm with Joe Burrow on this. He had that line a couple of years ago the championship window is as long as he's there. I think with all those guys, Burrow, Allen, I mean, the defense is so bad in Cincinnati, I might remove Burrow from that conversation right now. But Allen, Jackson, a couple other, like even Justin Herbert, it's not going to take much for him to get in the mix. Denver, for instance, might be in the mix there if Bo Nix just gets a little better. So I just think you just got to keep going. I know it's Sisyphus, the what is it, the Greek god or whatever, rolling the rock up the hill.
That's right.
You just got to keep going, and at some point the Bills will break through.
Speaking of the trip to insanity here, last year one of the big questions about the Buffalo Bills was the wide receiver room. And this year it looks like one of the questions about the Buffalo Bills heading into the season is also still the wide receiver room. But it does look, while there are still the same questions, it is very different. Josh Palmer is here now. There's the second year of Keon Coleman. What do you think about the Bills and where they're equipped in the skill positions to see if they can keep the top 5 offense that they have humming along?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they had the top 5. They had it without a true number 1 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Cooper didn't give them anything when they got him. And I understand, like Brandon Beane said, he wishes the fans would understand that you don't need a true number 1 receiver in this offense. I genuinely agree with him. I don't think it's going to be on Keon Coleman, but I do think Keon Coleman's going to get a little better this year. I'd like to see more separation from him. I'd obviously like to see more health from him. He was obviously banged up in the middle part of the year. And so I think he can take a step, but I think Josh creates the offense. Josh is the offense. Josh is the system. And so I understand attacking defense more than the skill guys. Because, again, if the question is Josh needs to do X, Y, Z in order for them to take a step, I'll take that every day. If it's a defensive personnel problem, that's where I say, I don't know. I'm looking at the Ravens, I'm looking at the Chiefs. They've got the defensive personnel. So upgrading defensive personnel was always going to be a priority in my book. Getting an extra cornerback. I mean, we saw guys, Tyre Elam in that Chiefs game, I mean, he was going backwards. He was falling down. I mean, you just can't have that in the playoff game. And again, talking about luck, some of that was health, but obviously he was the first-round pick from a few years ago. So I understand why Brandon Beane was defensive a couple months ago about the big wide receiver question, because I think that wasn't as important because Josh can create this stuff. That can be James Cook. That can be one of the tight ends. I don't think having a true number 1 type of wide receiver is mandatory for this. You don't need Jamar Chase in order for the Bills to win a Super Bowl.
And speaking further on that, Kevin, because of the fact that corner was also one of those big priorities, and they reworked that with a couple familiar faces. In the offseason, they bring in Dane Jackson on a lesser note, Tre'Davious White. They draft 3 corners in the draft with Max Hairston, Dorian Strong, Jordan Hancock, all seemingly look like they're trying to file out the depth chart that way. And then the big battle that we were promised for cornerback 2 between Max Harrison and Trey White. Now here we are looking at week 1, potentially both of them looking at injuries, but it still does seem like the Bills wanted to make sure they had a concerted effort in fixing the secondary and in particular fixing the depth chart at cornerback as well.
Yeah, I mean, you throw resources at it, right? You throw resources at the problem and make sure you have it. And you mentioned the fact that you might be down 2 cornerbacks in week 1. That's going to happen, but at least have resources over the next 18 weeks. And for me, the number 1 thing is I understand the impulse to say we aren't worried about January because we have to embrace the process of September, right? But the Bills, that division is bad. It's flat bad, and they're going to win the division. And I think they're the only team in the sport right now, when I look at the other divisions, who can order the division championship banner right now. Okay, I don't think there's anybody else like this. When you look at the AFC West or even the AFC North, it's way too competitive to order the banner. The Bills are going to win that division. And so the most important thing for me is making sure that secondary is shaping up for December and January. I'm not too worried about September. I think that when you throw resources at the problem, things shake out. You're able to see who your best 5 are, your best 6 are, depending on what kind of defense you're going to play. I've got a lot of faith in Brandon Beane's ability to fix this, and that's why I think they're going to be as good as they have been the last few years.
Kevin Clark here on the Wester Hotline. Kevin, on that, you mentioned the AFC East is not a very good division, but looking around the rest of the AFC, I think for a lot of Bills fans, this looks like one of the years that they can really get the 1 seed, that the AFC around them is getting tougher, but not necessarily at home. Do you kind of agree with that? And who do you think could really be some of the surprise teams in the conference?
I mean, I got this question the other day from a Bills show as well about the 1 seed. And it's obviously something that's extremely important because you want those playoff games in Buffalo, obviously. I think that there are a couple ways to look at it. Number one is, if the Bills are the team we think they are, they're going to win a bunch of games, and there are, frankly, easy outs in that division. The Jets are an easy out. Miami, I don't know what the heck's going on. I had higher hopes. The vibes just seem off there. The Patriots, I think, are still a year away, okay? The AFC West, on the other hand, man, that's 3 credible teams. That's 3 teams that are going to really not only is not easy outs, like 2 of them might win the division. I'm talking about the Chargers and the Broncos. I think the Broncos have top 5 offensive line, top 5 defensive line, probably maybe the best defense in football. And all of a sudden, the question is, can Sean Payton elevate a quarterback? I'll take that question mark, okay? Because Sean Payton has done a lot in his 20 years as a head coach in the NFL. And so I look at that as one of the reasons the Bills might be able to get the 1 seed. Same thing with Baltimore. All of a sudden, you've got Aaron Rodgers with Pittsburgh raising that floor. You have the Cincinnati team that can beat anybody. The Browns are the Browns, so that is an easy out. But I'm just looking at this conference. I'm seeing a lot of depth, except in the AFC East. And I just, unless Houston, it's possible that Houston is good and they're able to beat up on the rest of the teams in the AFC South, but I don't see it to the Bills level. So I guess if I had to pick a favorite right now, guys, I'd pick the Bills to get that 1 seed.
There we go.
It's nice to hear.
There we go.
It's nice to hear. I mean, the Chiefs now will, with dark magic, go 15-2 again, and they'll beat the division.
17-0.
Zach,
17-0. There you go. 17-0.
Why do you make me want to slap myself with comments like that?
Kevin, though, in all seriousness, like for a lot of us too, it always kind of feels like that is coming. Where like you mentioned, the AFC West, they've got 3 credible teams. And yet somehow the Chargers will screw it up, and somehow with Sean Payton as head coach, Bo Nix will take a step back. Like I think that's for many of us, it's going to happen.
Yeah, right. The voodoo, right? But that's part of it. I mean, that was the Patriots story for 20 years. Is every time it looked like the gap was closing, they found a new edge, and that's part of that. I think is Andy Reid. I mean, Andy Reid is so smart, and he knows how to evolve with the game. He knows how to do just enough. He knows how to hire and fire coaches and assistants and all that stuff. I think it's a really special group, and that's the reason they're able to maintain that edge. I never thought. It was amazing. I lived through the Patriots stuff, and I went to a lot of those games. I never thought there'd be another team where the floor was the conference championship game every year. And guess what? It happened immediately. And like literally while Brady was playing, we had another team that ended up having that same floor, and it's just miraculous. And so, yeah, I would be spooked if I was a Bills fan. You should be scared. I had to do a quarterback tiers thing on TV a couple weeks ago. And I put Mahomes on his own tier, and I called him the Terminator tier. And the reason I said it was because if you weren't scared of him, it's because you haven't played him enough. And I think the people doubting him this year, I would never doubt him personally. I mean, he knows how to do enough. And again, that's coaching, that's Travis Kelce, that's a bunch of guys who know how to win. But that's the reason this ends up happening. Is that, Denver's improved, fine. We beat them because we blocked a field goal. Like you find those voodoo moments, and that's how you extend a championship window. And that's why I'd be very, very scared if I was a Bills fan.
Yeah, totally get it. All right, Kevin, thanks for jumping on with us today. What do you guys got going over at ESPN2? This is football.
Yeah, we got a bunch of season preview stuff this week. Next week is week 1, so we're going to start going there and getting our main guests for the year. If you want to go back a couple weeks, training camp show from Rochester, we had Deion Dawkins, Brandon Beane, and Ray Davis. It was a really cool episode, really good insight on what the season's going to look like. So a full Bills episode that aired on TV, I want to say last week, but it's still available in pod form. This is Football from Omaha Productions.
Fantastic.
Love that.
Kevin, we'll be listening, man. Hope we can talk again down the road.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that.
Kevin Clark there on the West Her Hotline, host of This is Football, which is over on ESPN2, formerly of The Ringer. That's where I really got to know Kevin's work as well.
And now with Peyton Manning's production company with Omaha Productions.